G'day, everyone, and welcome to Mastering Music, Mastering Life. It's Tony Jack the Bear Mance in the chair, coming to you from Deluxe Mastering in Melbourne, Australia. I still believe it's the world's most livable city. At least some days I feel it is, some days I don't, due to this fucking traffic that we're dealing with. But I'm so delighted to finally, after a fuck up from my end from the previous recording, Mr. Chris Geringer from Sterling Sound. G'day, Chris.
G'day. How are you?
Mate, spoken like a true Aussie. That sounds so.
You got me in the Melbourne mood.
No, it's good. It's a good mode to be in. It's you fit right in. You should come and work over here, Chris. You know what? That's what we should do. I
enjoyed Melbourne when I was there.
When was the last time you were here?
Oh my God, it had to be like 15 years ago with Murat. We were in Sydney and then we were in Melbourne, and we saw Geelong versus St Kilda in footy.
Now, how was that spectacle for you? Watching AFL football.
I enjoy footy. I'm a soccer fan, so I get it. I'm not really a rugby fan, I'll be honest. Like, I don't, like, it was funny down where you are, there's 30 channels and 28 of them are rugby or footy, or news about it or something like that. And everybody was so like union or rules or what is the thing?
League, rugby league, rugby union, and Australian rules.
That was some kind of like, that's something I don't want to bring up again when I'm down there. Everybody's very adamant about what's right.
Yeah, man. Just come on down just come during the cricket season and then get to watch a game that will perplex you even more.
That's what I was going to say. It's cricket is something I really try and watch. I just don't get it. It's like baseball. It's just long and boring.
Yeah, but baseball, at least it's over. And you can go to a baseball game and there's an outcome of sorts at the end of the day, whereas Test cricket particularly, it's 5 fucking days, man. And quite often there can be no outcome. I mean, look, I like Test cricket. I don't mind it. I don't have the time to sit down and watch it. But I know for Americans, I can understand why they scratch their fucking heads when they look at that shit.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So Chris, one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast, my man, is I'm just wanting to speak to a whole bunch of people, not just mastering guys. I mean, mastering guys being my niche and forte, but just people in the entertainment industry who are sharing their journey through music and their careers and their life lessons in the hope that, young kids who have aspirations of becoming artistic, creative people. And I guess, if it's mainly musicians, whoever, but nonetheless, they have dreams of becoming something other than doing the 9 to 5, doing the grind, doing shit they don't want to do. And hopefully, listening to people like yourself who speak about their, what they've had to go through and their lessons, so that they too can walk away with a sense of hope towards taking some kind of step in that direction.
Yeah.
And I think you're one of the perfect guys to do it, man. You got a great story, so that's why we're here today, man. Just to talk about your journey and where you're at and what you're up to. And so
I want to know when you get there. I want to know where the finish line is.
Well, that's the beauty of it. There is none.
I know.
But for a lot of people, man, they don't even get out of fucking bed to get to this track, to the starting line, to even hear the starting gun.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was young, this has like been my passion, like, most of my life, almost all of my life, music and, being creative in the game of music and just, being around musicians and being part of it. It's always been my passion, outside of that, it's, film or photography, maybe one day I'll go for that,
Well, one of your partners, Ted Jensen, he's pretty handy behind a camera. Some of his photos are just fucking stunning.
Yeah, he's good. He actually, when he got into it a couple years back, it was like I had been a family man and working hard and really didn't take time for myself. And then maybe like 4 years ago, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go out and get a new camera and I'm going to like just start clicking again. And, I've been super involved in it since. I just went to Sedona, Arizona, and probably shot 1,000 pictures in 5 days.
Wow. So what was it like in the desert, man?
It's beautiful. It's really quiet. We were high up, 7,000 foot altitude. it was nice. It was very like I went with a couple friends of mine, and we just like disconnected. We just like literally disconnected, walked around, you know, drank beer in the afternoon, looking at a rainstorm, things like that. It was kind of beautiful.
It's amazing, isn't it, how much we forget our connection to nature. We work in the city, we're doing city things, but how much we miss our, just being with nature, and how refreshing and replenishing it is just to be out there, even if it's just for 40 minutes walk in the park. Just something does something for you.
Yeah, it's something I don't really do. Like, during the week, I wake up, I brush my teeth, I come to work, I go home, I brush my teeth, and I go to bed. Literally, that's how I live my weekdays. And on weekends, I run around, trying to do errands and do a couple things with my kids. And I don't really take that kind of time. And this was the first vacation in a while where I literally just like went away and shut off life and kind of, just breathed for a minute. And we were at a nice resort. I got a massage one day. It was nice. It wasn't even like a great massage, but it was just nice to have the time to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear. And then you come back to work, your assistant's gone on holiday, and, and it all left your body. It just
Yeah,
disappeared.
literally, it's all evaporated. It's all just distant. I'm gonna go home tonight and look at my pictures on my camera and try and remember what I did.
Live vicariously through those.
Yeah, yeah,
So for those of you who don't know, like, I mean, you work at Sterling. Sterling is probably one of the longest running, one of the most prestigious mastering houses in the world. And I doubt anyone out there who's watching or listening would have a record in their collection that has not been mastered at Sterling by someone there at some point in their life. It's just such a profound establishment. And you guys have recently moved. So tell us a little bit about the move from Chelsea to where you are right now.
So we moved from Chelsea, New York City, Manhattan, to New Jersey, to Edgewater, New Jersey. It's literally just across the river. Um, it's New York City is for billionaires now. It's not even like it used to be a joke. Oh, just millionaires can live there. Everybody in New York City is either a millionaire or struggling. There's no middle ground. It's a hard place to live financially. I quite enjoyed living there when I was there, but it's just different now. It's like we moved over here to a new facility. We started from scratch. We had a new designer come in, build amazing rooms. Northward came in, and they just built these beautiful rooms that sound amazing. I mean, I had a client today, and he was just like, man, this is unbelievable. So we did that, and now it's like, now we're actually enjoying being, on the ground level and not in a tall building, and not, taking trains. Everybody kind of walks around at lunchtime, and, you take a minute, you can go outside and breathe a little bit. Clients are kind of loving the fact that, they're not trapped in the city being forced to like have meetings and people coming by. They come out, they kind of just separate, and they listen to the music like in a different way, I think. They're literally separated from the big machine of New York City, and they can come sit on a couch here and not worry about all the things they have to go to. And they're just focusing on the music.
There's something to be said in that, isn't there? Where just a client can come into a place where they can shut the door, forget about where they are, kick back, relax, disassociate from the world. And like I said, just be focused on what's going on rather than what's happening next and what they've got to do, and their mind just being wandering into something else. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, man. When your clients are feeling good in the room that you're in, and it's a good vibe, they tend to be, you just tend to be more creative when you're more relaxed. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people notice, I mean, these rooms are like it's eerily dead silent in here. But I think when they're here, they're just like, they're so focused on the music and what they've worked on and what they want. And they can hear the change. You can hear subtle changes, from the couch, which is kind of nice. It's just a great work environment. I think I'm really proud of like what we've done here and what we've established, and, you know, where we're going forward.
Yeah, I think in the current world with so much more online mastering, and you in particular, who has such a, a broad international client base. I don't know, like, I guess it depends on engineers, but for me personally, Chris, I really enjoy attended sessions. There's something about sitting with a client, being able to chat with them about what they want to do, where they want to go with what they're creating, establishing that relationship and connection. Yeah, I know we have Skype, we have all these other things, and they're great, and they have their place, and it's amazing when you have the technology. But for me, something about the personal, eye to eye, face to face, pressing the flesh kind of thing that just makes a difference in the relationship and the work that you create.
Totally. And you get feedback that, like before, if someone doesn't come to a session, they only have what I've given them. And they don't get to hear like, hey, maybe it would sound better with more bass. Maybe it would sound better brighter. Maybe it would sound better louder. So they don't have that option. And there's always questions and doubt and all these things. When they're here, they can say, hey, try this, try that. And they leave so much happier and so much more aware of the way it sounds to me and here, that it just, the sessions go so much easier. And personally, I just like, bullshitting with people and chatting it up and, you know,
Well, man, that's what, as I mentioned to you before, and I'll say it again, and I've said it many times in posts I've created, and it was a great lesson. Rick Essig, who was a guy that taught me how to cut vinyl at Frankfurt Wayne, he said to me, 80% of this job is bullshit, and which is the hang time, the relationship building, the fostering of that, and getting to know people. And it doesn't mean that you're invested in them and living out of their pocket, and sometimes you can have some social stuff. I generally tend to keep a pretty tight line between social and professional, but there's something still about having good, friendly, cordial relations with people, and also being a little bit invested in their life and where they're at. And it helps. I think it really helps.
oh yeah, it's great to know, like it's a privilege. I think sometimes, when I'm sitting here and someone's telling me the story about a song, and then, it goes to number one, and I'm like, I know the backside of that thing. Like everybody's like, oh, it's about dating, and I'm like, it has nothing. Like
Mm.
it's just cool to know that kind of stuff and hear it from the writer's mouth.
Yeah, actually, that reminds me. You're aware of that song by Carly Simon, "You're So Vain." I don't think anyone really actually knows what that song is about. It's one of those unsolved mysteries of life. People think it's about Warren Beatty, but apparently, the story goes that she auctioned off this thing for charity, where she said the highest bidder, she would actually tell what the song was about or who it was about, and then they had to sign a disclosure, privacy disclosure thing that they
Really?
wouldn't apparently so. So the story goes, but
I thought it was about Mick Jagger. I heard one time. There's so many stories about it.
yeah, but it's cool though, like you said, when you sit down with an artist, and I suppose you more so than anyone, but you get to deal with so many more high profile people, to hear backstory, the real fucking deal behind shit.
Yeah, yeah. No,
That's
it's
cool.
great.
No,
It's totally cool because like the stories are stuff that most people are never going to hear. They're never going to hear the inside detail of that song.
yeah. So tell us, man, how'd you get started? Just give us a quick run through to how it all began, and how you found yourself in the mess that you're in right now.
Yeah, God. So as a kid, I always loved music. We had a big console at home and playing records and air guitar. And then as I got older, trying to put bands together in high school and jam and all that stuff. And right out of high school, I started doing live sound by kind of accident, by telling friends who were in a band I could do live sound, just because I thought the guy who was doing live sound was like a stock boy in a supermarket. And why is he up there when it's my passion?
Mm.
So I told him I could do it. The band let me do it. And the rest is kind of history. Like it worked, I did, I turned some knobs. They sounded really good. And I started working for other bands. Um, I wanted to work in a studio. Then I figured if I could do this, if I was, 8 months successful in doing live sound in local bars, I could definitely go to school and become a big engineer. So I went to this 1-year school, the Institute of Audio Research. They're no longer around. They closed last year. I didn't even graduate. I printed out my resume. I went around to studios in New York City, and I got a job. And, from there I went to another job and another job and, another studio. And I wound up in a mastering studio, just because it was a local studio in New Jersey, True Tone Records. Um, I got a job doing everything there, one job fits all. And then they finally, after a year, gave me a chance to go in the studio and cut, learn how to cut vinyl. I did that. I then left to another studio, Frankfurt Wayne Mastering, as you know.
Mm.
And I became Herb Powers Jr.'s assistant and Tom Coyne's assistant. And I did 3.5 years there working under those two guys, which they basically, shaped my career from
I,
that point on.
I remember Frankfurt Wayne being lovingly known as the Black Man Studio back in the day,
Oh, yeah.
because there's so much R&B and hip hop and beat driven music.
Oh yeah, and that's where I went into Frankfurt Wayne wanting to do punk rock music. That's what I was into, alternative stuff. And I started assisting two guys who were doing, rap music, it wasn't even rap, it was really hip hop back then, and R&B and club music. And I was like, wow, this stuff's really cool. I can really get into this. And all of a sudden I became one of those guys who knew how to do, rap music or hip hop, master it. And my career took a giant, 180. And, I never looked at rock or, punk rock again like, oh, that's my dream. It was just music. And, through the 90s, hip hop became pop music. And that's where my career took another huge turn, is, just doing all these big records that were being played on the radio and, videos and everything. It was the whole culture of hip hop kind of changed in the 90s.
It's interesting how, I mean, obviously America being such a big market, it always fascinated me though, how you as an engineer could pretty much live within the space of one genre, because it was so big, there was so many sales, that so many records coming out. I mean, you could. I mean, look at. I mean, I'll give you an example, not in a hip hop sense, but someone like Ted Jensen. Okay, Ted is one of the premier rock guys. Has been for fucking ever. Could do if he chose to, for years and years and years. And I know that Ted is not a one trick pony. Ted is an amazing engineer. He could do a jazz record or a roots record or a classical record. I'm sure he could bang out an amazing master. But once you're known as something and you have had a success, if you will, within a certain space, then if you chose to, you could stay there if you really wanted to. And that's what always fascinated me about the American market.
No, totally. And that was, when my career first, when I actually started making money and could buy a home and, 2 cars and whatever, that's when I realized that, like, I was fortunate enough to be in that situation where I could live off of hip hop, and all the and R&B, and it was like it was paying my mortgage. It was making me, I was in a happy place from it. And then through the 90s, I'd saved up money, I'd started a family, all that stuff, and 2000s roll around and hip hop is now, it's just pop music. And I was kind of tired of being labeled for that, because there were a lot of big records that just weren't coming my way, because I was literally known as the R&B guy or the hip hop guy. And I, to this day, people still ask me about that. And, I want to, I guess, just let people know that I love music and every genre and can do everything. And I started just like accepting records that might not normally be in my lane. And, they turned out, like, now I do everything. Literally, I'll do, every genre of music in a day: country, rock, not really jazz or classical. I'll be honest, I don't do that. But, I still do R&B records, hip hop records, J-pop, K-pop, Chinese records, a lot of Latin music, European stuff. It just comes in because people, I guess, know I love music and, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I think it's important too. That's what I tell kids if they want to get into mastering. Even though we all have our biases towards certain things, it's really important that we learn to develop an appreciation of different kind, because a lot of records I have in my collection aren't necessarily things that I really like. It's not that I hate them, but they're not things they're not my go-to. You know, if I had X amount of disposable time to listen to something, they're not necessarily things I listen to, but I consider them a part of a study and understanding, so that when I could sit down with someone who brings in something of that genre, at least I'm conversant and understanding, so that when they say, hey, you know, kind of like this vibe of that record or this record, you can actually say, yeah, I know what you mean, and actually mean it, because you've got it, or you've heard it. You know, you've had time to digest it. And I think that's important that kids need to do that to get and also so that they can. Well, Australia is not exactly a market where you can necessarily get pigeonholed, but I think it can help you avoid that. Although, having said that, Chris Geringer, the one thing that is out of your control is whether a record becomes a hit. And of course, perception being what it is, you do a record and it goes to number one or it gets a lot of airplay, all of a sudden you're the go-to guy for that, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like anything else, you know, like fame is great, but it's shallow, and it's, you know, it's one dimensional. And, you know, like when you're associated with a hit record, you know, you run it as far as it can go. But, you know, I like to keep myself, you know, I like to stay hungry, and I like to go after different genres of music, and I like to go after stuff I really enjoy, you know. And I don't get everything that way. Like, I mean, my favorite bands I've never worked with, you know, like right now, Radiohead, Bon Iver, City and Color. Like, I don't work with them, but those are bands I really like listening to in my free time. You know, I've been lucky enough to work with Young the Giant on a couple records. I like them. I work with them. I'll listen to their stuff, you know, but it's very rare that, you know, I'll work on an album that I really love, you know, or I'm a fan of.
Yeah, that's interesting, that one. I've someone asked me the same question recently about, oh, is there anything that you work on that you would buy? And I'd say about 20% of what I work on, I would actually, you know, listen to in the car and with any kind of repeat in terms of consistently. And I've got a few albums I've worked on from years ago that still are in my car. They're still rocking the CD changer. Those ones are, you know, they're as rare as rocking horse shit. But nonetheless, man, it's still a privilege, and I'm sure you'd agree with me, just a privilege to be able to work on music. And even if you don't necessarily love it, you always will find some beauty in it when you look for it, whether there's a riff or a production element or a tone, a lyric, something, isn't it? You always will find something that will get you through.
It's funny. Like, if I have a demo reel here of, like, every time I work on a song, and there's, you know, whether it's sounds amazing in my room, and, you know, it has all the right parts to be, like, you know, on my reel. It's all different genres. Like, it's literally like, it's stuff that you would listen to and be like, why is this stuff all here? And then, you know, in my room you would understand it, but if you just saw a playlist, you wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
You know, like, I just did the Mean Girls Broadway show, you know, soundtrack, original cast. And there's parts of that album that I just think sound so amazing. It's full orchestra, you know, like Broadway show orchestra. It's not like a philharmonic, but it's just some stuff. It really sounds good. It's just, to me, it does something to me to make me, you know, be a fan and really love it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you actually go to theater at all? Are you a theater guy?
No, I don't do theater. I saw Book of Mormon because I'm a South Park guy. And that's kind of my lane. I saw Tommy, the original Broadway show, The Who.
Yeah.
Saw what's the Kuna Matata? Lion King with my kid. And then I saw Book of Mormon. That's it. I've seen 3 shows in my life.
Man,
it's just not my cup of tea. No hate or
anything. Yeah. No, I hear. I hear. Same thing. Look, I actually, I've only been to one off-Broadway show in my whole life, and that was to see Jekyll and Hyde. And we didn't actually get to see the star. It was the understudy, who was Sebastian Bach, right, of Skid Row. He was the understudy. He got a 15-minute standing ovation. I mean, 15. No, I'm not exaggerating. 15 minutes standing ovation at the end of this thing. I wept, Chris Geringer. I wept. It was so moving. I know I was, and before that, if you said you're going to be transported when you check this out, this is going to really fucking fuck with you. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And dude, I was just like, I was a mess. It's just like, wow. But interestingly, I haven't gone back. I haven't gone back to the theater.
I would recommend seeing. You would piss your pants over Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
It's so right in your lap. It's just you. Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. It's very funny. They did a great job on it, I thought. I actually did the Hamilton mixtape, so I have ongoing free tickets for Hamilton. I have not gone. There are people who are angry at me for not going.
Well, can you hold off till May next year?
Sure, I'll take it.
We can.
I have literally the producer from the Hamilton mixtape was literally just here. I have no interest in seeing it.
Well, I reckon we could have a man day, Chris Geringer. I can see it. I can see it in my crystal ball.
I'll take you to Mean Girls.
Cool, man.
Mean Girls is funny.
Whatever. Just so long. Let's do that and a dirty old fucking hot dog, in the gutter, and I'm happy. I don't need much more than
a dirty water dog. Yeah,
I don't need much more than that. So, are you living in Jersey yourself, or are you still in the city?
I moved from the city back to Jersey. I live, 2 miles away, 3 kilometers for you people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just super easy now. I don't think my car actually warms up by the time I get here.
Right.
I think it's a downhill drive. I think I just roll with the brakes off, and it's really nice. It's just a different life now. I mean, I'm back in the city once a week for either dinner with friends, dates, carrying on, whatever. It's right across the river. It's not a big deal, but just the life out here is way different now.
Yeah. Tell me if it's okay to ask, what's the dating game like in 2018 in the big city,
Horrible.
Chris Geringer?
Horrible. It's horrible. It's just so like I'll be honest. I was on the dating apps for a little while.
Yep.
And I don't know if I could do that again. It's like a second job. Like you have to connect, and then you have to see where it's going, and then you do hey, let's plan dinner, and then you schedule, and then you go and you meet, and then it's like a big gap again. What I think for my age, I'm in my 50s, late 50s. For my age, everybody's so in their perfect spot. You don't really care about BS anymore. You just want to you want to get together and move fast, and it's hard. A lot of women my age have been through the ringers, raising a family, getting divorced. They're jaded. They're back in the workforce. It's hard for women, and for guys, it's I guess it's hard too. I don't know. I just I'm taking I hang out with some friends of mine. I'm kind of taking a break from the dating game right now, though. It's just it became a little draining for me. It just became too much.
I think so. I can understand where you're coming from with all that, and I think as you get older, it becomes harder because you also you know what you don't want. You definitely know what you don't want, and that's maybe just as important as what you do want. But I think we do get comfortable. I think people get comfortable because I guess this is probably your experience too, Chris. But I think as we get older, we get more comfortable in our skin. We're happier with life. We start to give less fucks about things that we did when we were younger, and we tend to be more focused and more relaxed about stuff and happier with our lot, and find more happiness within ourselves and with what we're doing. And I think a big problem with people having relationship, and I'm no relationship expert, but I think that it's when we validate ourselves by the love we have from other people, and we need to have people in our life. And when we can sort of go, you know what, it's great to hang with you and great to have that time, but I don't need you in my life. And it's that neediness that creates all the issues and where people get scared and freak out.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's, being in the studio is kind of like my safe spot. I come in here, I work long hours. I'm, kind of dabbling with, high profile stars, and it's fun. It's great. It's, you know, it's a part of my life most people don't ever get to, you know, experience or whatever. But at the same time, I'm not, you know, it's not like I'm going out to dinner with Rihanna or hanging in these circles of famous people. I'm just on the edge of it. And I go home at night and I'm the same as everybody else. I'm tired. I want to like relax. I want to like, you know, do things with my family every now and then. And, you know, people get caught up in, you know, what they expect in a relationship, what they, people like overstep how much time they really have in a relationship or like life. And I've like found at this point in my life, like I like being alone every now and then. I like spending, you know, a Sunday, whether it be rainy or sunny, like on my couch catching up on bullshit TV, or like, you know, going online, or, you know, being creative at home, painting or working on photos, you know, things like that.
It's so important, man. And I think that's one of the big problems with people is that they can't stand their own company. And that's why a lot of people, part of the reason why people take excessive drugs or alcohol, because they just can't stand to be around themselves, either through self-loathing or just not being okay within their own skin. So it's funny you should say that, because I realized that later in life as well, that I could actually enjoy my own company, be okay with myself, and doing all the aforementioned things that you said before. And that was a good day. It was a great fucking day. No problems at all, you know?
Yeah. I've realized, I thought like after my divorce, like, oh, I need someone to sleep with, and like I would need this nurturing and this whatever. And now, like, you know, even when I hang out with friends, you know, it's like, all right, good night, you're going home. You know, like I like sleeping by myself. I like waking up by myself. I like making breakfast by myself. You know?
It's a good thing to do. Although, have you seen the I saw something on the news here, although it's not an entirely new concept, but now there are professional cuddlers now, Chris Geringer.
Really?
A lady in Adelaide,
Springboard in my career.
and check this out. Her surname is Sin. I love it. Sin. That's her surname. So the irony was not lost on me. But she seems like a really nice lady. I think she's from the subcontinent. But for $70 an hour, she's got about 20 clients that they go and they get a cuddle. It's non-sexual. There's nothing like that. But although it's fairly intimate, and it's amazing that she's offering that service. I find it also incredibly sad that we have so many people out there that are so starved and devoid of love that they're paying for something like that. But hey, man, look, I'll cuddle people for nothing, Chris. I don't need to charge that shit. Just fucking, you know, just bring that shit in.
My ex-wife said part of my problem was that cuddling leads to sex, and she, you know, she's like, "Can't we just cuddle one time without the sex?" I was like, all right. Divorce.
I understand. I understand, Chris. So I know you're not going to tell me what you're working on, because you're going to be shot by the Illuminati if you know, if anyone tells you what you. But do you actually have to sign? I'm sorry if this is a naive question, but I have to, because I've only been ever asked once ever to do this. And have you ever had to sign off a confidentiality clause or anything like that on a record? Ever done it? Have you ever had to do anything like that?
Yeah, I've actually done that. So far in 2018, I think I've done it 5 times.
Wow. That
And I actually have 2 projects in my system right now that are, you know, non-deplore names on the projects. You know, they're just made up names. And one of them actually had to be changed because someone found out what the name was, and you know, someone outside of, you know, the studio was at the record company, and they're like, change the name on all the files. I was like, okay.
Wow. Yeah. One of the craziest stories I think I've ever heard when it came to the secrecy and maintaining the integrity of the secrecy of a project was Dave Collins was telling me when he was doing a record for Linkin Park and involved what's his name? Come on, man! I can't produce a long hit. What's the
Producer?
Yeah. Rick Rubin, right?
Oh, yeah.
Rick Rubin. So apparently this the files used to be transported in convoy, like Mexican drug cartel style. You know, secret service. There were guys who were sitting in the room, you know, like looking like Secret Service guys, all the Wi-Fi, everything was cut in the studio. Nothing, everything was completely locked down, so nothing could escape. Then everything was videoed or reviewed, and then the files were detached and then taken away that day and then brought back. Just
Tom and I both did a shootout for a session with them years ago too.
Yeah.
So a guy comes in looking like just out of the military.
Yeah.
With a briefcase with a drive in it, radioed to someone on a walkie-talkie, like X5 Bravo, we are commencing file loading. And I was like, this is like some military shit. Like,
Yeah,
this
man.
is like some real stuff. And they put it up, he disconnected my whole computer. He did personally, ran a test to make sure it wasn't transmitting, put the files in, did everything, and then erased the files from my system, and then put this tracer in to get rid of any kind of cookies or whatever. And then he went into Tom's room and did it with him. Neither one of us got the session. And it was just funny that, like, literally we spent an hour doing 1 3-minute and 45-second song. Just in transmission, Bravo, radar,
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
like all that stuff. And it was crazy.
I certainly hope you were. I certainly hope that you were charging on an hourly rate or on a minimum booking for that one.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
It's amazing, like the level that people go to and the money that gets spent sometimes on some records. I mean, I know the budgets have whittled down quite a lot since the good old days, as it were. I remember Howie Weinberg telling me, man, that when the pop album, when he did that pop album, this is back in his master disc days, that was $60,000 American dollars for the mastering bill because of all the refs and because it was international versions. It was the master for Asian market, UK market.
Oh, yeah.
And like, dude, even to the point of like the CHR radio market, and does that shit still go on these days? Are you mastering like for the CHR radio and MOR and fucking every other format that exists over there?
No, they don't really. I mean, I guess there used to be like the adult contemporary edit, which was like whatever it was. The intro was shorter, and then there was the pop, and then there was the whatever edit or version. I don't really see that anymore, but I do a lot of K-pop music, and there's the K-pop / English version, the K-pop / Japanese version, and the K-pop / Chinese version now. So I actually have an album session tomorrow where there will be 3 discrete masters.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of K-pop?
I think it's amazing. I was just in Seoul in April, and how Disney is like, you go on the ride and then you go, it's exit through the gift shop. So K-pop music, every entertainment company, and I'm not going to say record label because they're more than just record labels. Every entertainment company that has K-pop artists on their roster have stores that have like, you can get a MacBook Pro K-pop record cover, name the band, like cups, glasses, pencils, t-shirts, shoes, socks, book holders, coasters, mouse pads, whatever you could possibly buy where they could print something on, they have it in the store. Food, soda, coffee, tea. I have a K-pop band hot chocolate in the kitchen here.
That's crazy.
They just put the name of the band on the hot chocolate and people buy it. I think it's amazing that they have developed this, Beatle-esque vibe in Korea, or Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. Like they've brought music back to more than music. It's celebrities, it's following, it's all this stuff behind them. I'm sure there's TV shows. One of the places I went had a virtual reality hologram performance that you could go stand on stage and sing with your favorite artist.
Damn.
It's amazing. It's like, I'm happy to see that. And that's why I went to Korea, to become involved in it, because in America, like, some amazing bands put out an album and one song sees the light of day. You know, nobody cares about it. It's the one song, yay, next. You know, they just move over. Over there, it's about, you know, not just the album, it's about them as celebrities.
And from what I've seen, I mean, I've never actually sat down and listened to a K-pop record in my room, but there's a channel here called SBS, and they have like a weekly K-pop. Well, they did anyway, a K-pop weekly show, and you could just tell, even listening through the TV, the production element and some of that shit, and some of the song. I don't know, could be Max Martin behind it for all I know, but they're not fucking around though.
Oh no, it's all a big deal. Like when I was there, you know, I mean, obviously I was there to meet labels and everything, but I didn't really notice anything else going on. You know, there's movies and television, but it's really this K-pop thing it's not just going to disappear. It's really big, and I think it's expanding right now. It's in the Philippines, it's in Indonesia. It's really running. You know, I heard it's getting big in Vietnam now. So it's really running through Asia, and it's actually hit the U.S. You know, this band BTS does stuff in English, and they're kind of getting popular here.
Do you ever see a day where it'll cross over in your neck of the woods?
When it crosses over, it'll be back to being boy bands. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I just feel like it's a genius move, because as far as like celebrities go in the world, most singers, songwriters, celebrities are, you know, they're either white or black. And, you know, as far as like Asian celebrities, you don't see them outside of Asia really, where I think the first band to break is going to do so well, because, you know, everybody, you know, every race wants to assimilate with someone, you know, you want to assimilate with someone in your race that you can look up to as a kid, you know. And I think this is, you know, it's doing stuff for Asians, you know, like Asians are feeling like, hey, we're finally like on the big screen now. You know, there really hasn't been an Asian star in the US ever, you know, like it just, for some reason, I don't understand why. There are people they tried to break from Japan and, you know, all over the world, but it just never really happened. And I think Korea they've really got their game on strong and right now.
Yep, it's amazing how much. Again, here in Australia, we tend to, artists are looking towards going to the UK and you know, the US obviously, and you know, Canada to a lesser extent. Although Canada's not that dissimilar to Australia in terms of size, but you know, markets like. Sorry, mate.
We call Canada upstate New York.
Yeah, right. Of course. Or West or East Alaska, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, but you know, here in Australia, where people overlooking like markets like Europe, I mean, people underestimate how big and how that they can actually have careers touring over in Europe. When you think about Europe and geographically, you know, you don't have to drive too far to get to a town where there's a decent enough population to be able to justify putting together a gig. And even Russia. I mean, I got a client here, man, who's pretty much putting his entire focus on Russia, and where, you know, they're selling like millions of fucking records in Russia, man. No one knows about them here, but you know what? They've just found a market, and I think the smart money is on people trying to look outside into different marketplaces than the usual, because everyone's trying to get a piece of that action.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that, like, you know, when you think about it in general, like if you're Austrian, you could probably listen to a German band and understand it. But if you're Spanish, you can't really listen to a Portuguese record and understand it. You know, I mean, I guess there are parts where people, you know, in Spain and Portugal where people speak both languages. But for the most part, if you're from Mexico and speak Spanish, you're not going to understand a Portuguese record from Brazil or whatever. And K-pop has kind of crossed those boundaries where people are just so into the music, they're not really worried about the language as much. And I mean, there's a lot of English involved in it now, but like you don't see that in other countries. I actually had a session with guys from Denmark, and they said there's two different languages spoken in Denmark, and the bands, you know, the bands don't really cross the lines. You know, the language barrier is so particular to people in that country that they don't really cross over. So,
Wow.
like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can be huge in France and nobody in Germany, and you're literally could be 25 miles, you know, away from Germany, and you have no value there whatsoever.
Yeah, it's
You know,
crazy.
it's crazy. It's like Russia and Poland. Like, you know, they each have their own artists, but there's no crossover really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just kind of funny in that sense, and amazing that K-pop is like, you know, breaking those boundaries. I really thought like years ago, like Latin music would just, as it became popular through like, you know, styles like reggaeton and other things, that it would really cross over. And it has in a sense here, but not in the way that K-pop has crossed over,
Yeah.
where it's really blowing up.
Yeah.
You know, Latin music is definitely more popular here in the US now, but it's a very small lane of artists that have done it.
Yeah. So listen, Chris. Well, I've got about 10 minutes or so before we're going to bail. And what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is I just want to spend the next little while just to close out. I just want to talk to the kids out there who are watching us or listening to us. They got aspirations and they want to, you know, get their foot in the door. They want to do something. So what are the things that you would advise kids to do these days now with the internet and whatnot? Just some strategies or some ideas just to give them something to think about. I'm not necessarily asking you to invite them to hit you up, but for example, what are the things that you look for if someone was going to hit you up? What are the qualities? What are the things that you'd look for in someone? And what are just some strategies and that you give to kids to take away to have a think about if they have serious aspirations of getting involved in, particularly in the music industry?
I mean, follow your passion, whatever it is in this business. You know, if you want to be in the music business, follow it passionately. Don't dabble, or like, it has to be in your heart. It has to be in your mind 24/7 that you want to do this. So learn how to express that to someone, and if once they understand that passion, your doorways will fly open to anyone like you or me, because we went through that. You know, we understand that. So that's a big part to me. You know, when I talk to kids about, you know, communicating that passion and communicating what you want to do and where you see yourself, and, you know, how you feel about doing this stuff. That's really important. Also, like, don't get caught up in like, I want to be an artist or nothing. You know, everybody wants to be an artist, and you know, you and I wound up being mastering engineers. I'm sure it wasn't your first lane either, and it definitely wasn't mine. But I realized, like, I'm doing something I really am passionate about. I'm really into like the sound of music and the way it vibrates and the way you feel from it. So I found mastering is like that's my jam, that's my thing. And I wasn't open to it when I got into the business. I didn't even really know about it. So just, you know, embrace everything that comes your way, you know, accept jobs that you would probably think, you know, hey, this isn't exactly where I want to be. I don't want to work at a radio station. I work in a recording studio. But working in a radio station is music. You're experiencing it. You're learning new things about, you know, music and the way you want to do it. Working at a record label, you know, working in any, you know, any place that makes music, sells music, you know, develops music. You're closer to your passion than you are to, you know, that you're going to get to it at that moment. So accept it and see what happens, you know, like, just be open.
I think that's great advice. The other thing I've often told people is to do a bit of research as to where they want to go and why. And that doesn't mean being particularly picky, because, you know, one of the things I can really tell, and I guess like you, our bullshit detectors are pretty sensitive, is when people say, "Oh, I've always wanted to do mastering," when you know fully well that's not what they really want. Not what they really want to do, or can't demonstrate that. And usually, you ask questions like, "Who are your favorite mastering guys?" and they can't. They get stuck. But it's okay to be honest about those kind of things, because we appreciate that stuff more, and we're more than likely to sit down and go, "Okay, well, you may not want to do mastering. You want to be a singer. Okay, well, let's sit down and talk about where you're at, where you want to go, so that at least we can direct you in the right direction, or refer you to someone else." Do you know what I mean? Because there's nothing worse than having someone here knowing full well they don't really want to be here. It's just the sweet talk that gets them in the door. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, totally, totally. Plus with kids too, I realized that, like, you know, at a certain age, you have no real life expectations. You don't know what life tastes like, feels like, or looks like. So they're they're driven more towards like, I want to be an artist. I want to be a producer. Like they see fame and stardom in their eyes and they don't really understand the need for music in their soul and in their life. And they don't look at jobs like mastering or, vocal editing or drum programming or, things like that, or Foley work or, mixing for movies, they don't understand that. And I think it can be frustrating to some of the kids who do that, like, well, if I don't get A, then I'm done. And it's like, that's life. Most people aren't going to get A. Most people are going to wind up at F or G or L or wherever. So, just embrace it as it comes your way. And you never know what's down the line. You never know what's really out there. You never know what your special gift is either.
That's very true.
Without trying different things, you're never going to develop that gift or find out what it is.
And I really like the point you make about that. It doesn't have to be either or. You can do things concurrently, and you can develop an artistic creative career and hold down something in the meantime to keep you fed and your rent paid, etc. And over time, as you build one thing, you can have less reliance on the other and create this seesaw effect. For me, it was 21 years from the point of wanting to start a business from the coffee table in my flat in 1990 to where I am now. That was a 21-year period of time, to build that. And so, and I think people forget it doesn't. You make a great point there, Chris, and that it doesn't have to be either or. You can do things side by side, and as one, you get more, and as one picks up, then the other one lessens, and less reliance to the point where you realize, shit, I don't need to do that anymore, and I've built enough critical mass to go ahead and do my thing. So that's an excellent point. I appreciate you bringing that up, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have a 20-year-old son who, 5 years ago he wanted to be, a rock star, and now he's, gone from being a rock star to, he's really into producing vocals and, tuning vocals and, editing vocals and getting the right performance out of somebody. And, he's doing a lot of drum programming too. And it's something I never even thought, like he was a vocalist in a heavy metal band. He just left the band, but he's open to so many new things. It's kind of funny. Like, I'm wondering where he's going to end up in this business. But, in the meantime, he's a butcher at a supermarket because he has to pay rent and he has a life he has to lead.
I'm sure he'll land very gently, Chris.
I don't know. Every now, I get worried about him because I see his passion for this, and it pains me to go. I'm going through it again through him, and I have all the answers, or at least I think I do because of where I am, but I really don't. And I realize that, like it's like each one of our careers is like a singularity in the universe. It's like this one moment in time, it happened, and we follow our path from here on out. Not everybody becomes a rap star. Not everybody becomes a rock star. Not everybody becomes, a successful businessman or lawyer or doctor or, tomato salesman. Like it's all singularities. And, if you keep your head up and find yourself staying in that universe of comfort and love for music, I think you wind up okay.
Great advice. Well, on that note, mate, we're going to have to bail, but thank you so much for joining me today.
Sorry
we just always have good conversations, man. I really appreciate the time you take out for me, and thank you for your support on social media, and we'll chat again soon. I hope to get you on another podcast before I get over there next year, and I'm going to hold you to that Hamilton mixtape ticket thing.
We're going to see Hamilton.
We'll go and check it all out. Well, listen, mate. Best of luck with everything that's going on, Sterling. Continued success to you and everyone over there, my friend. Big love to you. Thank you so much, and it was always a pleasure chatting with you, Chris. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Take care, my man. All the best.